Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Lamontagne. I'm senior economist at UNAIDS. I'm working on the economics of HIV, stigma, discrimination, focusing on key and vulnerable population groups. I'm based in Johannesburg, and I would like to thank the organizers for making this meeting happening. So I'm going to present you on our latest study published this month on the socioeconomic inequality, health inequity, and well-being of transgender people in Nigeria. Despite progresses in the last decades, transgender people are still facing social, legislative, and health barriers, and it turns and affects their physical and mental health. Stigma, discrimination, and criminalizations are the highest challenges they are facing, and it compounds to marginalizing transgender people, leading to the negation of the existence of gender diverse person. We performed a survey in South Africa and Nigeria. I'm presenting here our result in Nigeria, where we were looking at the difference in the social demographic profile of transgender people and how they were facing these different three dimensions of inequality. So HIV disproportionately impacts transgender people, and in this study we refer to health inequity to describe an unfair, unjust, biased distribution of resources or services. And one key characteristic of health inequity is that it is avoidable. For example, no reason justifies that transgender women have poor access to HIV and health services. Inequality, on the other hand, generally refers to inequality of opportunities among different population groups in choosing the type of life they want. And we refer to this inequality for factors rooted discriminatory practices and belief beyond the person's control. I will skip pass quickly on these coming slides. It's important to know that this study was approved by the Board of Ethics in Nigeria. 4,000 participants participated to this study. 86% were cisgender women, vulnerable women living with HIV or at high risk of acquiring HIV, and nearly 12% were transgender women. This is a visual of what the survey and the study here is about. So we looked at this focus population group is those living with or at high risk of HIV, and you can see that we looked at specific vulnerabilities on the right side. I have to go fast because I'm going to run out of time, and I have a lot of material to share with you. Basically, we built three models on socioeconomic inequality, health inequity, and well-being for transgender people. We looked at different variables. They are listed here. So for the socioeconomic inequality, it's a lot about economic vulnerability, such as food insecurity, financial insecurity, housing insecurity, socioeconomic status. We also look at macrosocial vulnerability, such as using drugs, engaging in sex work, and engaging in transactional sex. For health inequity, we look at global health of the participants, self-assess, the HIV status, self-reported also, access to SRHR and HIV services, financial and non-financial barriers, and also, of course, access to transgender-specific health services. And for well-being, We consider gender-based violence as a key variable, mental health, and some psychoeconomic characteristics such as willingness to take risk, trust, and time preference. Model characteristic, you can come back to this slide after. The key message here is to know that we perform a lot of tests before building the model, during, and also post-estimation tests. We control for co-founder. We also check for interaction between variables and so on. So, result, 3 slides. On the socioeconomic inequality, transgender people are more likely to live in the lower socioeconomic tertile. They are less likely to face food insecurity, but more likely to face housing insecurity compared to cisgender vulnerable women. In terms of macro-social categories of vulnerability, well, they are less likely to use drugs, but 3 times more likely to engage in sex work and to engage in transactional sex. In terms of health inequity, a third of transgender people surveyed had challenges accessing gender affirmative treatment and were more likely to have difficulties accessing HIV services. They have higher odds, that said, of reporting good health compared to vulnerable cisgender women. They have, and they are more likely to have a recent HIV test compared to vulnerable cisgender women. We found no differences in the odds of disrupted access to sexual and reproductive health services between transgender women and cisgender vulnerable women. However, we found that transgender people had more than 3 times higher odds of reporting disruption in accessing HIV services, as I introduced in the top of this slide, and they had also higher odds of reporting additional non-financial fees as a financial barriers. As a comparison, for cisgender vulnerable women, the main barrier was the official fees. So this is a key difference. And they were also, in terms of non-financial barrier, more likely to identify disclosure of their gender identity or their sexual orientation as the main non-financial barrier in accessing health services. In terms of mental well-being, transgender people are almost 3 times more likely of being survivors of gender-based violence compared to vulnerable cis women. They have also higher odds of facing anxiety and depression compared to women, and they have higher odds to take risk, to trust in other people, and to lower, and they also have a lower time preference. This last point is important. What it means is that transgender were more likely than vulnerable cisgender women to discount future outcomes when comparing them with more immediate outcomes. This matters because several other studies demonstrated the relationship between time preference and health risk behavior and preventive health behavior, including HIV ones. So to conclude, this study brings to light new dimensions of vulnerability of transgender people in a highly stigmatizing sub-Saharan country such as Nigeria. Our findings emphasize how the absence of basic human rights and being outlawed affect access to health and health outcomes in transgender people. There's a possibility that the increased vulnerability induced by COVID-19 will turn into long-term health consequences that could jeopardize the achievement of the SDGs. CSOs, national authorities, donors should take stock of these new evidence and implement interventions that address socioeconomic inequality, health inequity, and well-being of transgender people, and it includes introducing procedures and legislations that protect transgender people from discrimination and violence, including in healthcare facilities. The study is available on this link in the middle of the page. I want to take this opportunity to thank the civil society organizations and the community-based organizations who made this survey possible, particularly that it was during the time of COVID crisis and the lockdown. Thank you very much for your patience.